I'm Alex Frank, and let's get right to the chase. It is time for the Bengals to swing big for Joe Burrow in free agency. Mike, there's no other way to put it. It's time for the Bengals to make some big swings in free agency.
I feel like they've tried to be frugal the last few off seasons, but I think it's time. Yeah, I agree with you. Let's take a big swing at free agency and see if we can get back on track.
It's our free agency preview on this edition of the Bengal Squad Show.
Good day. It's the Bengals Squad. Everything Cincinnati Bengals every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Queen City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. From the jungle to the playoffs, the Bengals Squad Show starts now.
After 5 o'clock on this Friday, March 6th of 2026, my name's Alex Frank. He is Mike Santagana. Coach Jake and James are on assignment today, so Mike and I are going to give you everything you need to know for the upcoming free agency period, legal tampering period for the NFL. Today's edition of the Bengal Squad Show is brought to you by Gametime, and right now with the Gametime app, you can download it, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Mike, when I think of this free agency period coming up for the Cincinnati Bengals, legal tampering period starting on Monday at noon. The new league year starts Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern. And you talk about the Bengals strategy, I think you just got to swing big. Regardless of position, we'll get to specific positions coming up. But for me, you got to be willing to open up the checkbook like he did in 2021 and 22 and with Orlando Brown Jr. in 23 and just swing for the fences, see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like these bargain free agent signings that they've been doing, thinking of, TJ Slayton was all right, but Geno Stone trying to, outsmart the market and get a guy cheaper than you'd expect. And similar to Oren Burks, like these guys just they've given you back what they were paid to do. They have played like replacement level depth pieces. And to be honest, like the best free agent signings they make, it feels like they do spend a little bit on them. Maybe not all the way up. They've never been that team. But think of like DJ Reader and Trey Hendrickson. They had to spend real money on those guys. Chidobe Awuzie, I think that's another one. They did have to spend real money, even though I think they would look at that and go like, we did get a little bit of a bargain. But yeah, I'm on your side with this. It just doesn't feel like they're always putting their best foot forward here. And for me, like, let's put that foot forward. Let's spend some real money and let's try to get back to the playoffs instead of just, let's make a couple minor changes. The defense has been this bad for 2 straight years. You need to make major changes.
Major changes need to be made. I think it's interesting to your point, Mike, of the players they've brought in recent seasons. You mentioned Geno Stone. They were coming off a 9-8 season in 2023. Joe Burrow got hurt, missed the last 7 games. And to their point, maybe they thought, okay, we're not that far away. Let's just make sure we have enough depth to key positions. They did that at safety. They did that on the offensive line with Trent Brown. They drafted Amarius Mims. But the plan that they have had the last 2 off seasons after going 9-8, it did not work out, and it resulted in them completely bottoming out at 6-11 last season. I mean, did they technically bottom out? Maybe not. But considering the expectations that were there coming into the season with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins under contract, extended, and healthy, it completely flopped their season. And now we come into this offseason and you clearly see where there are changes that need to be made and where there are players that need to be signed that can make an instant impact at key positions. And that's why you have to be willing to spend maybe a little more than you might want to.
Yep. I think you're right about they thought they were close. It's just 3 straight years of thinking you're close, you're not close. You're getting lifted up. I think at this point it's a worse team than it was back when they made the Geno Stone signing. So at least defensively it is. So for me, yeah, let's spend real money. Let's bring in some guys that'll make a big difference and not guys that we hope make a difference and come in cheap. And really what I want to see them do is spend guaranteed money. And that's a bit of a pipe dream, but I want to see them spend guaranteed money on players that aren't Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, where you're not going to get Brian Cook, Devin Lloyd, etc. by cheaping out on the guaranteed portion of the contract. I think that portion of the contract is huge for players that have a huge market. You need to be able to match what they want. And let's say you're in a bidding war with whoever, the Chiefs for Brian Cook, they want to bring him back. The Chiefs are going to be willing to spend guaranteed money, so you need to be able to match that because you're not going to go above what they're going to pay him in general. That I feel like they've been okay in terms of how much the contracts are per year, but the guaranteed money just hasn't come with it. And until you get that portion, the top level free agents are just not available to you because they have offers that do give them guaranteed money like that.
This comes with the Bengals just needing to get uncomfortable in the way they do things because this is such an important period of time, not just in this offseason, but for the entire organization in its history and its future. The past, the present, and the future are all going to clash this week. And you have to be ready to maybe do some things that you haven't done with the way you've done contracts. Let me ask you this, Mike. You weren't on our show Tuesday. I want to get your opinion on what the Bengals did by re-signing Dalton Reisner on Monday to a one-year deal worth up to $5 million. And then, obviously, and I know I said Tuesday I wasn't going to mention his name again, but they did not tag Trey Hendrickson. What were your thoughts on those two moves and how they set up the Bengals in free agency coming up this week?
The Reisner part of it, I think, was a great move. I mean, they needed to, right? Because you look at a lot of I know we just said all that about the higher profile free agents and having to get uncomfortable, make those signings, etc. I do think the offensive line one, that's like the one place I'd look and go, I'm not sure we want to make a splash here. When I look across what everybody just got paid, and I'm looking at the big signings. Mekhi Becton just got cut. He was one of the jewels of the free agency cycle last year. Will Fries, he's all right. He's fine. But you're paying like $20 million for fine per season. So while I agree they need to make a big splash, I'm thinking on the defensive side of the ball where I think those players do make a big impact. It feels like when you have good offensive line players, you keep them. And that's what the Bengals are doing here because I think Reisner was pretty good for them, especially down the stretch there. I thought he struggled a little bit early, even got benched, but when he came back with a fire and played extremely well for them, it helps Amarius Mims' development too by having that next to him. I think when it comes to the Trey Hendrickson part of this, I wouldn't have wanted to be in the situation, right? Like I should have paid him last year what he wanted. Now you're uncomfortable because you're like, he's another year older. He keeps getting a year older and he outplayed his contract. So it's hard not to be a little bit sympathetic to his side of this. But I think the other part of this is this is always going to happen. They're going to let him go. I feel like the writing was on the wall the entire time. Like I said, I would have paid him, and then I would have also you could have got something, right? Because the problem with getting the comp pick, some people are going to point to, you can get a third round comp pick. He's going to go make a bunch of money. That means you didn't sign anybody. So it's almost the worst outcome to get this third round comp pick for Trey because that means you're going out there with the same defense, basically. Whereas if you just franchise tagged him and asked for a third or fourth or whatever round pick, I feel like you could have gotten that done. Maybe, but they lost all their leverage because they've played their hand. And we've said it, I think, forever here is that we just don't expect Trey Hendrickson to come back because they've made no intention of making that contract. It seems like both sides have kind of burned their bridge. I didn't want to tag him and hold him hostage, but I did want to get something for him. And the Bengals are going to walk away most likely getting nothing for him.
Yeah, that's a big blow for me because I think if they had gotten creative, maybe if they had gotten out in front of this last offseason, they could have. Now, personally, I'm just glad that the situation is over. It was a saga that, as you said, never was, really should have been. So both sides have moved on. We'll see how the Bengals, fill his void. We'll see where he goes. That's going to be an interesting topic league-wide this offseason. For me, when I think of Dalton Reisner, I just think of the fact that yes, it took the Bengals 10 years almost to figure out their offensive line after Andrew Whitworth left, Kevin Zeitler left. And to their credit, I mean, they've tried a lot of different things. They tried drafting. They tried free agency. They've thrown so much at fixing it. They got it done, which good for them. But I just think that the big takeaway for me as it goes into free agency is you have to be able to do things in a quicker period of time than what the Bengals had to, than the duration of the Bengals fixing their offensive line. Because when you focus on one problem, Mike, there are going to be other problems that pop up. And the Bengals, as we know, their other problem is a big one. Their defense needs a total rebuild.
Yeah, and it's needed a rebuild for a while. I think last year the offseason was such a failure to me, and every year you're going to get a large group of fans that are going to say it's not an issue. Like, look, they drafted this guy in the second round, and he's kind of a late third type of consensus player. So they kind of reached on a linebacker in the second, and then they got a linebacker in the fourth. You start selling yourself on how this all works. To me, it was always a failure because you need sweeping. To me, I need a sweeping change. If the defense is that bad, at the end of the day, players play. Coaches coach, get them in the best position, but what's the best that this group of players can be? And are you going to have a first-year defensive coordinator put them all in the best position, making his, first attempt at calling plays at the NFL level? So that was always an issue. So now you got a second-year guy. You might know what Golden wants a little bit more than to me also. In the draft, I'm not going to worry too much about the Golden fit because I just don't know if he's going to be here while that player is still on his rookie deal. So, but in free agency, I think you do need to worry about that. He is your defensive coordinator. So at least for this season, you've got Al Golden here. So can you get a guy that maybe fits his defense a little bit better at safety than Geno Stone? Can you get a guy at linebacker that fits a little better than Oren Burks, or a defensive tackle or edge rusher that's going to be able to rush the passer and replace Trey? I think those are the things I'm going to look at. But when a defense is this bad, it was for the first, 10 weeks of the year, it was maybe the worst defense of all time. And then they were able to turn around a little bit and finish respectably just bad instead of terrible. I think that you need to make big changes. Like I said, players play, and you need to have the players that are able to reach that standard. So for me, I would make big changes. I think we're in agreement here. And maybe we'll talk a little bit in the next segment about where we're, at least the beginning of like who I'm going to try to target throughout free agency. But yeah, you need big changes. Right now, they don't have a second safety. They've got 2 second-year linebackers, and neither one of them look like neither one I'd feel great about starting next season. And you've just lost your best pressure getter, your best, sack artist. Yeah. And one of the best ones in the league. So you got a lot of holes right now that need filled.
You do. You absolutely do. But I think the good thing that can come out of Trey Hendrickson not being tagged or re-signed is the fact that you have more money, you have more cap space. There is a clearer picture this offseason for the Cincinnati Bengals and what they need in free agency and what they need to fix their team so they can compete for not just an AFC North title, but because if they win the division or even just get into the playoffs as a wild card, Joe Burrow can win them games in the playoffs. We have seen that before. It is that simple, but you have to build a team that can weather the 17-game grind of a regular season, and that starts with identifying exactly where the Bengals need to rebuild on defense. We'll get into that conversation coming up next right here on the Bengals Squad Show. Today's edition of the Bengals Squad Show is brought to you by Gametime. We live in a world where we can stream anything, order food in minutes, and carry supercomputers in our pockets. I don't do that, but hey, you can if you want to. Yet somehow buying tickets to a live game still feels complicated. It shouldn't be. Hidden fees, jumping prices, endless steps. There's got to be a better way, right? Well, it's why I use the Gametime app. It gives fans the advantage and makes getting tickets simple. Whether it's NFL games, concerts, comedy, whatever you're into. It is March, if I didn't mention that. I jumped on the app to check out tickets for the SEC tournament coming up in Nashville, and honestly, well, it took me just minutes. You can see panoramic views from every seat before you buy. The price you see includes all fees, so there's no surprises at checkout. You can even spot zone deals where you pick the section and Gametime picks the seat for extra savings. Just 2 taps, and you have great seats locked in. It's fast, it's easy, and boom, you're done just like that. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Mike, before we get into where we start on defense for the Bengals, I was listening to a conversation today that Fitz and Witt, it's called Fitz and Witt. Ryan Fitzpatrick and Andrew Whitworth have a podcast together. It's really good. And they interviewed Zach Taylor on their latest edition. And I got to be honest with you, it was a really good conversation. And it made me just really more want Zach Taylor to win here in Cincinnati. He's won before. He's taken the Bengals to the Super Bowl. But you hear it in his voice. This guy, and I've heard this from Joe Buck as well, he's bright, he's knowledgeable, he cares about winning, and he cares about the players. And that positive culture is a big reason why Dalton Reisner's now back here, why Joe Burrow loves it here. And that just makes it even more of an incentive to build a championship contender on this Cincinnati Bengals team.
Yeah. Zach's always been great for the community, and I think he's actually a stand-up guy, and you can't say that about every NFL coach. So it really would be nice to see him do better throughout the season. Whatever you think of him, fire him, whatever. End of the day, he's a good person to me. I think you see that with kind of the nice thing he did for Jay Morrison and some of the stuff he does with fans. Seems like the players genuinely like him. Just wish that there was a little bit more success these past few years, because it really felt like in 2021, I'm not going to say that, Zach Taylor was the reason for it, but it really felt like this was a different team from I had watched in my life. Like, they went to the playoffs and they were winning these games. So I'm not going to give him all the credit for that. I think a lot of the credit goes to Lou Anarumo, Joe Burrow, etc. But he's part of that. And I really would have liked to see that continue, not just for my own fan viewing, but also just, I think he's a good guy. I would like to see him win more. I would like to see him get better at some of the things he does as a coach. And I do think he's a better coach than he was when he was hired. So I think he has improved as part of the point of hiring these young coaches.
He has. And I thought it was interesting how Witt mentioned that when the Bengals hired him back in 2019, the Bengals called him to get his opinion on Zach Taylor. That was really interesting that the Bengals used an opinion of someone that was a stalwart for them for over a decade. And obviously, we know it didn't end well with Witt here with the front office. I do feel like the relationship between him and the fans is strong. I think Witt has respect for the Bengals organization based off last year when Prime came here for the Thursday night game against Pittsburgh, and then now this podcast that he just did interviewing Zach Taylor. So it's really interesting, kind of the new perspective that I have on Zach Taylor. And look, you mentioned the last 3 seasons. They have been frustrating because Joe Burrow is in his prime, because of the great 2024 season that he had. The injuries have obviously made it that much more frustrating. But it all goes back to how this offseason is the biggest offseason in team history, given what we saw in 21 and 22, where we know this team can go organizationally because of the quarterback that they have. So the mantra that defense wins championships is still very much true. And if the Bengals are going to fix their defense, to me, Mike, it starts up front. I said last week, when you and I were on Tuesday's show last week, I said that linebacker was my biggest storyline going into the combine, because I did not think Barrett Carter and Demetrius Knight are starter caliber going into this season. And whether that means you take a good hard look at Sonny Styles, or whether it means you sign somebody like Devin Lloyd in free agency, that was my biggest storyline. But for me, when fixing this defense, it does need a lot. But you have to start somewhere. And for me, it starts up front. It starts on the defensive line. Can you get disruptors in the running game? And can you get an impact player off the edge maybe, now that you have decided to part ways with Hendrickson?
Yeah, I think when you think of that, I think in a vacuum, I agree with you. But when I'm not thinking of that, you look across the free agents, right? And I feel like there's just better players elsewhere. Now, I think Jalen Phillips isn't on their radar. I think he's too small for them to give him a big deal. The same reason they don't draft these guys that high. John Franklin Myers might be, but he is 30. So they don't really pay 30-year-old guys very often. And I know people are probably just screaming, like, just do it. Just get an undersized guy. Just pay a guy that's 30 years old. But it's the Bengals, so I'm trying to play a little bit realistic. So Odafe Owe is interesting. I think, again, a little bit smaller. I think with that one, you're probably a little bit worried about – he was very good for the Chargers. He wasn't extremely good for the Ravens. He was fine, but are you going to give him $20 million a year for putting together half a season of good play in a playoff game. I think that might make you wonder. And then Boy Mafe, to me, also, he fits them a little bit better in my head because they like those big edge players. So if they're going to replace Trey Hendrickson, it feels like I move all the way down to Boy Mafe as a realistic target for them. He's projected to make $15.6 million a year or so, 15 to 16. Might go up, might go down, depending on how that goes. I think he's a guy you probably have to give guaranteed money to, but 27, going to be 28 this upcoming season. He was pretty good for Seattle, and that's a defensive line that was a heavy rotation and was obviously a very good defensive line, won the championship with them this year, so comes with a little bit of championship experience. That to me is, if I'm going to start with the D-line, I think I look there as a guy that fits a little bit. It's going to cost you because he's a young guy. He's ascending, hopefully, and there's a little bit of talent there. I think you'd be a little bit uncomfortable in general with a $15.6 million tag for a guy that's like, he's pretty good for Seattle. He's part of a rotation. He got some sacks. He was a young player. He's hopefully going to be able to get better. That to me looks like the Trey Hendrickson one, right? Under 30, ascending, part of a rotation. That's what Hendrickson was. He was under 30. He was ascending. He was part of a rotation. Now, I don't think Boy Mafe is Trey Hendrickson, but that feels kind of like what they might go for. I don't know your thoughts on this, because for me, I would love if they just signed John Franklin Myers. I think that guy is an awesome player. He can play a versatile role, both all the way from inside of the guard to outside of the tackle. He's a very good run defender as well as a pass rusher. I think he's a good pass rusher. I'm not sure he's a great pass rusher. Played for Denver. Played before that. He was with New York, and I liked him there too. He's only projected to get $13.6 million because he's older. That's where I would love to start, but I don't know if you have different thoughts about what the Bengals might be doing.
I like John Franklin Myers a lot. I think it'd be a good place to start because of the fact that he comes from a defense that had so many good players. I like players, and taking away the X's and O's aspect, for me, I look at where did this player come from? Did he play on a really good defense? And Denver absolutely was that last year. You look at a guy that can disrupt the run, he can get after the passer. I need someone that can do both of those things, because when you talk about the Bengals defense last year, a big reason why they struggled is they were getting gashed at the line of scrimmage nearly every single game. I mean, from the first game in the regular season to the last, they seemingly had no answer when it came to setting the tone at that point of the field. Now, another player that's interesting for me, and this is Pro Football Focus, they have this player ranked as their best defensive interior, and that's DJ Reader. Now, I bring him up because we obviously know he played for the Bengals from 2020 through 2023. He's 31 years old. So do you bring him back? We saw them bring Von Bell back prior to 2024. It didn't necessarily work out. But for me, I think, again, while being purposeful about what you're trying to do to rebuild your defense, I think you have to just have everything on the table for you. And if that means bringing a player back who is a fan favorite, who at the very least you know can still play, and at the very least you also know is going to be a leader in that room where you have so much young talent. Think about this, Mike, when it comes to defensive tackle. McKinley Jackson and Chris Jenkins Jr., who I think both have potential to be good players, but they need some help. And coaches, as you say, they can only say so much. You need a player that's been in their shoes, that has done what they're doing and can show them how to do it at the high level. Coaches can say and coach whatever they want. The players at the end of the day, they're making the difference. They're making the difference. And to me, when you have a guy like DJ Reader who can set the tone, who can collapse the middle, make it hard for teams to run against him, he can allow edge rushers, whoever the Bengals edge rushers are this season, to get after the quarterback. You have options at the defensive tackle position, like John Franklin Myers, like DJ Reader. I'm going down my list of rankings here from several outlets. You mentioned other guys like Boy Mafe. I go down the list and I'm seeing Calais Campbell's a little older. I probably wouldn't go to him, but I
wouldn't mind a one-year deal on Calais. I think him and Onyemata, David Onyemata.
Yeah, I like him a lot.
They're kind of And Javon Hargrave, even maybe John Allen, like 1 year, easy to
Okay.
get out deals. I'm not
How about
expecting
Draymond
this guy.
Jones?
Draymond Jones. Draymond Jones is interesting. I think he played a bit more on the edge this year for Baltimore, but he's kind of a guy similar to John Franklin Myers a little bit, where you get some of that versatility. Draymond Jones has played on the inside. He's played on the outside. He's put up good tape in both areas. I think he also sometimes hasn't put up the best film, but I like what he did with Baltimore. I don't really care where he plays. If he can get some pass rush juice to a team that needs it, that's all that matters to me. Was an okay run defender, I think, last year, but he was a pretty good pass rusher, and he played really well against the Bengals. So I wonder, in the second game against the Ravens, I wonder if that at all makes them more likely to sign him, because you might know this too. They like signing guys that play well against them. You think of Geno Stone with the pick six and some of his other stuff. So he played pretty well against them. Makes me wonder, like, they might be a little interested in Draymond Jones. Only issue I see is he's under 30, but he's going to be 30 this upcoming season. So that's the only part of that doesn't 100% fit. But I like where your head's at there, especially in terms of finding a guy maybe that is going to make a little less money than John Franklin Myers. I think John Franklin Myers might be, for the interior defensive lineman, might be the crown jewel. Whereas Draymond Jones, he's projected to make a little under $10 million. Now, that's projections. We don't know what's actually going to happen when this happens. But, yeah, I don't mind that at all. But it look at defensive tackles. There's a lot of guys that you can look at and go, like, 1 year deals, 1 year deal. Like, there's not a lot of guys I'm looking
at.
That's
how I feel about this class.
Yeah, not a lot of guys at defensive tackle. I think the only one under 30 that's going to get decent money, and maybe I'm wrong, but the only one that's under 30, like well under 30, not like almost 30 years old, 29, going to be 30 this season, seems like Logan Hall, and I would be I'd be a little bit nervous about it. Whereas he kind of broke out a little bit later. Maybe you're getting him right now, and he's going to improve more from the Buccaneers, but that makes me just a little bit worried to pay extra for him, because he's the only guy under 30 that you can give a multi-year deal to at the defensive line position. Versus trying to find just like a Band-Aid, where I think it's not exciting. It's not exactly what you want, but a guy on 1 year deal for DJ Reader, David Onyemata, Calais Campbell, Draymond Jones getting a little bit of a deal, or even like a Danico Autry. There's Javon Hargrave, John Allen. I feel like there's a lot of guys over 30 you could find and maybe talk yourself into. Not a lot of guys under 30 at the defensive tackle position in free agency.
It's a unique class for sure when you think about it from that perspective. And all these rankings that I'm looking at, you kind of have to they're kind of like diamonds in the rough a little bit. They're needles in a haystack. You just got to search for them. And it's like, well, are they really that much of a commodity? I'll give you two other names, Mike. I want your opinions on Kyrus Tonga from the New England Patriots and then Daquan Jones of the Buffalo Bills. Do you think the Bengals could maybe – are those two names in play for you when it comes to the Bengals and defensive tackle?
Yeah, I don't know too much about Tonga. I know he is actually already 30 plus, but played pretty decent for them when you look at some of the statistics. He had a 11% pass rush win percentage. He didn't miss many tackles. He seems like a solid player. He played a lot in the A gap, so he's going to be probably a nose at the next level. I will say Daquan is a guy I've always liked. I think Daquan Jones I've always liked Daquan Jones. I'm trying to see, is he for sure a free agent? Because I was going, there we go. Okay, sorry. He's still playing well. I was just looking up some stats about this too, where similar, he's going to play a little in the A gap. He's not as much of a nose tackle, it looks like, as Tonga, but so to me, that makes him a little bit more versatile. He doesn't have to, you could play him with Slayton side by side. Going to be 35. I knew he was old because I've been watching him for years, but I think he's been a good player for the Bills. I think just for years now, he's been an unsung hero on that defensive line. I don't think he's going to save your defense, but plays pretty well, plays the run well, plays the pass well, does everything well. That's a great call for another 1 year deal guy. I think the defensive tackle market just feels so much like short, get a veteran, like an old veteran, into this group rather than trying to find a guy that's going to be a stalwart on your defensive line for years to come. I think I'm trying to find help, and that help can be a 1 year, maybe 2 year deal that you can get out of.
Sorry, I'm gonna sip water there. There are definitely a lot of interesting names at the defensive tackle position. Names that probably Bengals fans know about. I mean, you mentioned Daquan Jones. You talk about players who either perform well against the Bengals or you just know a lot about them because you played them so many times, like the Ravens or the Bills. I could see them definitely going that route. But again, I want to see one or two, preferably two, outside the box moves this offseason from the Bengals when it comes to free agency, because you need so much help. You got to get creative because you've dug yourselves this hole. You've done some good things. You've signed Burrow, Chase, and Higgins to extensions. That's fine. But you also now got to realize, okay, we've neglected this side of the ball for far too long. We got to maybe do some things that are uncomfortable to fix it. And if we miss, so be it. You need so many, numerous, several starters. And it starts up front for me when it comes to the defensive tackle position. But if that position has a lot of older guys and maybe guys that you're only willing to give you, as you're saying, Mike, 1 year contracts, this next position, which we'll get to in segment 3, linebacker, you can find some gold mines in this class and at that position in free agency. We'll get into that conversation coming up next right here on the Bengals Squad Show. Today's edition of the Bengals Squad Show is brought to you by TurboTax. It's tax time, but for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is, well, a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient, sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth and wondering if they really get your situation. Well, this year you're getting a major upgrade, ladies and gentlemen. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to give you every dollar you deserve while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to TurboTax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment. Back here on the Bengals Squad Show with Mike Santagana, I'm Alex Frank. We are the twice-a-week law-informed conversational show to the supplemental show to the Daily Lockdown Bengals podcast, hosted by James Rapine and Jake Lisco. We are all a part of the Everydayer Club, have the Everydayer Club, where you can join and become a member of the exclusive club, where you can get access, among other things, to the members-only Discord. For more, visit LockedOnPodcast.com/Everydayer. I should say we are all a part of the #1 sports podcast network in America and the world. Mike, linebacker has some gold mines at the position. We talked about this last Tuesday, and for me, when it comes to the Bengals and what they need, I just need the Bengals to get a fundamental, do-it-all linebacker, one that can make tackles, one that can cause havoc in the passing game, even make plays, whether it be interceptions. I need a linebacker who is developed and is just in the right place at the right time and is solid as a rock. What do you think?
That's the dream. I think linebacker is pretty fruitful when you look at it. There's quite a few linebackers that I think could be 3-down guys. There's a lot of role players, like high-end role players too. Devin Lloyd's the obvious one, right? And yep. I think, to me, I would give him the contract. I think some people look at Devin Lloyd and like, you don't want to pay linebackers $18 million a year, $20 million a year, whatever he's supposed to get. For me, I look at that and that feels like something they're missing. It feels like they are missing a guy like him on their defense at the second level. We looked at defensive tackles a bit. I don't think you're looking at defensive tackles you're going to pay $18+ million to. I mean, we found there's some. Maybe you end up paying John Franklin Myers, and I don't think he was even up that high. He was more like 13, 14. So I think when you're looking at that, they need linebacker badly. They need a guy that's kind of a leader in that room, I think, with all the youth there. Devin Lloyd fits really well. I don't think I expect the Bengals to do that. And then you look down the list and you think, okay, another young guy you could look at is Quay Walker. I think Quay Walker's played worse. I think he's not as good of a player, but he's under 27. He's 26 years old right now. He was a starter for Green Bay, and he's started all 3 downs. He's got the size, the pedigree, etc., to also be in that spot, to be a 3-down linebacker for them. I think there's other guys, but to me, both Leo Chenal and Nakobe Dean, a little bit more kind of like role players, maybe puzzle pieces, however you want to say that. I don't know if Chenal's a guy I want on the field on passing downs playing coverage. I think he's a really good run defender. He was really used really well as the Chiefs. He only played 440 snaps this year for a reason compared to the you can look at Quay Walker with 978. So he played about half those snaps. That's because the Chiefs are kind of using him like that. He can rush the passer. I think he can rush the passer, and I think he can defend the run. But until it comes to coverage, I'm not sure. I would be very interested in, I'm very interested in him in general, but it's more so kind of take that Demetrius Knight role, and it's not to be like the centerpiece of the defense. I think he fits a really good as a role player. And similar with Nakobe Dean, I feel like he is a guy I like. Again, 462 snaps. He was injured this year, though. I think he was a 3-down linebacker for Philly. He plays behind, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, etc. If you can get some monsters up front and keep him clean, I think that's when I really like Nakobe Dean. But I think you could get into trouble if you come with a similar defense that the Bengals had last year and you sign Nakobe Dean thinking he fixes your linebacker position, just because I'm not sure how well he's going to defend the run at his size if he has to take on a lot of blocks. So there's guys, but I think you and I are going to agree, like Devin Lloyd feels like the answer. It's just an answer of, will they pay him? Because he's going to be paid like he's the number 1 linebacker and one of the best free agents in this class.
You need a big fish. I mean, you need someone in this free agency class that can come in and completely overhaul a position. Because I think if there's any position on this team, and I think defensive tackle is also one of them, but for me, linebacker was such a glaring, I don't want to say weakness, but a glaring position of just lacking in talent. And I don't mean that in any disrespect towards Barrett Carter and Demetrius Knight Jr. I think those guys are really good. Let me rephrase that, excuse me. I think those guys are really good at working hard. I think those guys are easy to root for. I just don't know if they will be really good players. That's why you need a guy like Devin Lloyd to come in, reshore the position, set a standard like Mike Hilton did at corner, like Trey Hendrickson did on the edge. You need that kind of guy, and Devin Lloyd can be that. He came from a defense last year in Jacksonville that was really strong. Contrary to what you saw from them last year, when you thought of Jacksonville, you thought of Trevor Lawrence and how far he progressed, and Travis Etienne and Liam Cohen being a front runner for Coach of the Year. Overlooked in that was the fact that the Jaguars defense really took a big step forward this past season. They were able to get pressure on the quarterback. You saw that against the Bengals when they played him here. And so you have a guy in Devin Lloyd who graded, his PFF grade last year was 88.4. I don't know how you look at that and don't try to at least, throw some money at him, because he's going to command it. And that's where I think the Bengals could really make a big swing, make a big splash, that they're not just going to sign a bunch of guys. One of them might be a really good player. You have a guy in Devin Lloyd who could be that instant impact player. Now, if we continue down the list, another guy that stands out to me is Devin Bush. He played almost 1,000 snaps last year. And Devin Bush has been heavily linked to the Bengals for a long time. Drafted in 2019. He's been in the AFC North. The Steelers drafted him. Now he's with Cleveland. Now, his last 2 seasons, he's finished 87.6 PFF last year, 4th among all linebackers, 3 interceptions, tied for 3rd at the position. He could be a guy, knows the AFC North well. I can see the Bengals throwing something at him.
Yeah, my own issue with Devin Bush is when he was with the Steelers, I thought he was one of the worst linebackers in the league. And I do think he was pretty good for Cleveland this year. When I watched him, I thought he was good in the games against the Bengals and the other games I've watched. projecting at about, I don't know, $12 million or so. I'm good on. I would sign Devin Bush. He feels like, to me, I think I might. I like Devin Bush as a guy. If you're not going to get Devin Lloyd, this is somebody that projects as a 3-down linebacker. I'm not sure. Like, I see the projections $12 million. I wonder about it though, because it feels like he keeps signing these lower than expected deals. It feels like maybe PFF likes him more than the NFL in general might. So I'm not against it. I need to get over my own thing of like when he was with Pittsburgh, because I feel like he was very bad with Pittsburgh, but guys improve, they get better. And with him specifically, you can also think about his time in Seattle and might have helped him more than you think. So I'm for it. I'm definitely good with them signing Devin Bush. That to me does feel like a guy that's going to play 3 downs for you. He doesn't feel like a guy that's limited in one capacity or the other. I think he can play coverage pretty well. I think he defends the run pretty well as well. He was the Browns' best linebacker this year by far. Well, no, sorry, Schwessinger was there. So I was thinking of the game though, week 18, where he has the interception. This is another guy that, like we mentioned with Draymond Jones, played really well against the Bengals in week 18. And in that game was definitely the best linebacker on the field, because the other guy was Diabate, not Schwessinger. I think Schwessinger might have been better than Bush this year, but that was just a home run pick for them. I like it. I like the idea. I'm not opposed at all to getting a linebacker like Devin Bush. I think where I would also go is if you strike out with Devin Lloyd, which I'm not going to say they will, but if I had to put money on it, I would think that Devin Lloyd's going to get a contract with heavy guarantees, and I just don't know if the Bengals will do that.
Yeah. I'm
not opposed to Demario Davis, and this comes as another like 1-year type deal. Long-time defender with the Saints. He's played elsewhere, but I really liked him with New Orleans. I think he is a 3-down guy. Feels to me like a 1-year, $8 million type deal. The Bengals have the Saints linebacker coach from when they were together. I think there's a little bit of a connection there. I don't think this is a guy I'm going to on the first wave of free agency. But if you strike out with Devin Lloyd, and let's say Devin Bush ends up back in Cleveland, and now you're looking at signing a guy you maybe like Chenal or Dean, which to me is more of kind of a role player. Would you rather get a Davis for a year, an older vet that might be able to help the young guys and maybe somebody if they draft them, as well as be able to put some good production onto the field?
Other guys that I look at that stand out to me, Caden Ellis from the Falcons was a big part of their defensive success that they had at times last year. And then I also look at Justin, if I'm pronouncing this correctly or incorrectly, sorry, Justin Sternad, linebacker from Denver. He is 30 years old, but he said he thrived during the last 2 seasons. This is according to Greg Rosenthal of NFL.com. Last 2 seasons as a fill-in blitzing linebacker, he's earned a bigger role. Do you bring him in? Like, there are plenty of options at this position. You have to make a big splash. But to your point, if you do, maybe you bring in an insurance policy like a Demario Davis on a 1-year deal, just to have that veteran presence in the room. Again, this free agency period is not just about, getting a guy that can come in and make an instant impact. It's also about getting creative and pushing your chips to the center of the table. Because what if something does happen to Devin Lloyd and you got to go to Carter or Knight? But if you have a guy like Demario Davis who's been there, done that, then you go, okay, we're still fine at this position.
Yeah, they've got all 3 of the old linebackers, whichever one I guess is your flavor. Demario Davis is mine, but you also could look at Levante David and Bobby Wagner. I think all those are like the 1-year old vet linebacker signing you could make to kind of help out your defense a little bit. Caden Ellis is interesting to me. He's very Leo Chenal to me, where he's more of a run game player. He can rush the passer pretty well, but I'm not sure I want him in coverage that often. Another one, and I think we didn't talk about it probably because he's not on any of these lists, but Tremaine Edmonds did just get cut from the Bears.
Yes.
And I wonder if they're interested in that because he's under 30, former first-round pick. Now, the issue here is I think Tremaine Edmonds has played badly against the Bengals in their history. I don't think that we're looking at kind of a similar thing we talked with Devin Bush where he played really well against the Bengals. They'll probably be interested. I think this is almost the opposite, where I thought in that playoff game, he was one of the worst players on the field. I mean, what Jackson Carman did to him is not something that I expected. So that comes with some risk in general, just because he's getting cut because he didn't play up to the standard. But he signed that big deal. So a lot of the reason he's getting cut is because he had that big deal. Is he willing to sign cheaper? Because he's still getting paid a little bit from that deal. I think I would have some interest, but to me, again, like we kind of you talk about the waves of free agency. I think your first wave, you're really just talking Devin Lloyd and maybe your Devin Bush, Quay Walker type. So everybody's under 30. You're looking at multi-year deals. You're looking at guys that are talented and are expected to be 3-down linebackers for you. If you strike out, you start moving to that second wave. You've got Chenal, you've got Nakobe Dean. That's where I wonder, do any of these other guys kind of creep in there? Does Tremaine Edmonds kind of creep into like a second wave where maybe they don't think some of these guys fit their system as well. Maybe they don't want to play in Cincinnati, or maybe they do want to play. Maybe somebody does want to. That's kind of the I think that's the part of this that's you just don't know without being there what these guys actually want and who's a realistic target, whether that is something more than just the money. Because I think the money makes it so I'm dreaming of Devin Lloyd, but I would be surprised if the Bengals are offering enough guaranteed money to get him.
But again, that's the whole thing. I want them to surprise us.
Yeah.
Like I want Monday to roll around and they make that big splash by getting Devin Lloyd, or even just getting someone that you know of in the NFL that you've seen play linebacker. That's who I want to see the Bengals get on Monday. Like start off strong. Like last year they signed TJ Slayton and Oren Burks. And yeah, I thought those moves at the time were like, all right, you're adding depth. Certainly there's going to be bigger moves coming. And yeah, Chase and Higgins getting extended. They were big moves, but you needed help from the outside. This year, you got to be willing to do it. And even when Orlando Brown Jr. was signed in 23, it didn't happen until Wednesday night, Thursday morning, if you remember. So I need to see this team making big moves right out of the gate. Real quick. Is offensive line in play for you in free agency?
Yeah, for depth. I don't think I'm looking for a starter. I'm not going to overpay for a starter, but if you end up signing a guy that's decent, played a swing tackle position, maybe an older vet, I think that's something they're missing is a swing tackle and maybe a guard piece that's on the interior that can compete with either a draft pick or Jalen Rivers. Because I just don't feel comfortable about these guys going down to Jalen Rivers or Cody Ford.
So you'd be like dishing out 1-year contracts potentially to one or more offensive linemen. I think that's a good way to go about it because it's not a position you have to swing big for. It's not a position you have to throw a lot of money at. You fixed it. Congratulations. But I would more focus on other positions, especially on defense. And also, you can spend a mid to late round draft pick on an offensive lineman too. So it is in play. I think it always should be in play, but it's not high on the priority list. But what are actually extensions for two players that could even more clearly paint the picture for the Bengals in free agency. We'll get into that conversation to close out the show next, right here on the Bengals Squad Show. Mike, last year the Bengals made a big splash in free agency when they signed Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to long-term contract extensions. Last year for the Bengals, for me, looking back on it, was all about retaining key players. They did that with Chase, Higgins, and Gesicki, and they, to a degree, did it with Trey. But this year, it's about bringing help in from the outside. Still, though, DJ Turner and Dax Hill, I think you have to look strongly, especially with DJ Turner, at giving him a contract extension to solidify the cornerback position, which you can never have too much talent at.
Yeah, I would really like to see DJ Turner get a new contract because I think he'd be getting out ahead of it. He's linearly improved. And what I mean by that is he was not a good starter year one. Year two, I thought there were flashes, but, didn't quite give you exactly what you wanted. And now he's improved year over year to get to this point where he was a very good player for them. I think he was a Pro Bowl level corner. He didn't get the nod. I think he was voted. in the top 10, but didn't get the nod as one of the Pro Bowl corners. But he played really well, and I thought that was a bit of a snub. I think he was a good player. I don't think he's yet in that Pat Surtain, whatever you think of Christian Gonzalez type corner tier, but I think he's just below that. He would follow some of the best receivers around. He would take the tough assignments. He would play. The big difference is, to me, when he was younger, I feel like he was in the right position pretty often, but he wouldn't be able to make a play on the ball. Now, I feel like he's making these plays on the ball. He's got better ball. He's improved his ball skills, his ability to win at the catch point. He's always had the movement ability. He's always had the ability to stick with guys. But now he's not getting, dunked on. He's not playing perfect coverage and and then the guy's able to catch it around him. So I think that it all makes sense. I don't think this is a one-year wonder type thing. I think he is an improved player. And some people have pointed to like the Cam Taylor-Britt and how he regressed. I don't think Cam Taylor-Britt ever played this well. And I've thought that from the first 4 or 5 weeks of this season. I think Cam Taylor-Britt at his best was fun. He was solid, but I don't think he was ever a Pro Bowl level player in the same way I think DJ Turner was this year.
Cam Taylor-Britt, when he was at his best for a 4 or 5 game stretch, DJ Turner and Dax Hill have been able to sustain that. DJ Turner last year had 18 passes defensed. That's really good, Mike. 18 passes defensed.
One of the leaders in the entire
he had 2 interceptions. He also had 40 tackles. I mean, that's something I can get behind. And then you look at Dax Hill in the 2 seasons where he has played and started 17 games, he had 11 passes defensed in each of those seasons. And last season he got hurt 5 games in. So this is a guy, when he is on the field, you are a better defense than when he's not on the field. I know he maybe hasn't hit like the first round pick you thought he would, but he's been good. He had 110 tackles in 2023. He had 88 last season. This is a guy that can not only play well in coverage, but he can also step up and make tackles when you need him to. Now, do you want to see him have to make almost 100 tackles every season? Maybe not that, but you're getting tremendous production from him. So are we ready to say that Duke Tobin, which I know he's been awfully criticized for recent drafts, but he's found some 2 good players at defensive back. Hence, they came from the same college. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. But you've got 2 answers at corner. Maybe help yourselves a little bit. Lock them up. And then it's like, okay, we've got our 2 guys. Now if we want to maybe give a 1-year contract to a corner in free agency, I'm not saying you should draft Mansour Delane, but if it comes to that, hey, maybe you do. You have options at corner, and you're already in a good place to start with, Mike. That's what's really encouraging to me.
Yeah, it's the only room, I think, on the defensive side of the ball that I feel pretty comfortable in. I think
really
DJ Turner is a plus starter. I think Dax Hill is a solid starter. I think Dax Hill, I want to see a little bit more longer time because I thought he was solid early. He really turned it on, I think, in the back half of the year, whereas I thought DJ Turner was just good the entire season. But Dax Hill was also good last year. Well, maybe 2 years ago, if you're thinking about it, before injury when he played outside corner. So I would like to see a little bit more there. I don't mind getting out in front of that extension either, though. And you bring up Mansour Delane, whatever you do in the draft. Dax Hill kind of lets it so if you end up drafting an outside corner, he can go back to the nickel, and he's okay in that slot. If you end up drafting a Keontae Scott for the inside, great. Dax Hill has been good on the outside of
I'd love Keontae
playing
Scott.
outside corner as well.
Be a great pick.
Yeah. So if you end up drafting a nickel only, that's okay. Dax Hill can play the slot, or it can play outside. And if you end up drafting an outside corner only, Dax Hill can play inside. That's, I think, the versatility that he brings. And that's one reason that I'm interested in extending him. I wonder what the deal is for a former first-round pick like him. But I would, to me, I just start at the higher level of priority to me is Turner because I think he's a better player. And I'm going to start there and then see how much money we have left. I'd like to work out extension with Dax Hill. These are kind of the only 2 guys. Maybe you could talk about Myles Murphy. Maybe you could talk about Jordan Battle. It feels like the Bengals might be more interested in that than some people are. But these are the only 2 guys I think are like the true building pieces of this defense right now. I want to see more from Murphy. I thought he turned it on a little bit in the last half of the year. I thought, Jordan Battle's always been a bit of a roller coaster to me. But these two guys, I think they're the only piece of this defense I feel really good about. They're the only piece of this defense that long term I feel like I would like to see these guys be starters for the next 5 years or however long.
Dax Hill's really interesting to me because I don't know how they view him. Mm-hmm. I think he's a good player, and I think if they do extend him, I think it's a good move. But I wouldn't necessarily be upset if they don't. And I say that because you look at the cornerback class in free agency. There are some good names in this class. Tariq Woolen, one of my favorite players in the league. Alontae Taylor is in that class. Jalen Watson from the Kansas City Chiefs. These are guys that come from, most of them at least, come from winning teams. Jamel Dean played on several division titles with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So if you go that route, or if you even just want to bring a guy in, if you want to keep Dax Hill as your slot corner and you want to have two outside guys to pair with DJ Turner, if you're not going to have Dax Hill on the outside, that's something you could do. You have flexibility at the position, which I think is a really good asset and a really good advantage to have, especially at a position that is so valuable in the NFL because of the way teams are prioritizing throwing the ball down the field, even though running games have ticked up a little bit over the last 2 seasons. But I think you're in a good spot right now. You have two guys at corner that are ascending. So reward them. You did it with Dalton Reisner. And again, this Bengals organization, they have changed in a lot of ways over the last few years. There's still room for change. And I think they know that. The question is, will they make those changes? Got a few minutes left, Mike. If you could give me one player, regardless of position, that you want to see the Bengals make a big swing for in free agency, who is that player and why?
I mean, it was Devin Lloyd. We've talked a lot about it. That's the one I'd really like to see them make that big swing. I would like them to sign a safety, and I think they will, but I want them to sign a guy that I want them to spend a little bit there too, where I think of Brian Cook as a possibility. You look at Nick Cross is young, so there's a chance there. We talked about Kobe Bryant, I think, last week. Jaquan Brisker, another young safety. I would like to see them make a signing at safety. I wonder if they will or won't. And if they do, personally, I'm kind of expecting it to be more in the tier that they've been playing in. But for me, Devin Lloyd's the guy I'd love to sign. I'd also really like to sign Brian Cook. I think he was really good this season.
I'm going to give you two names. I'll give you two names as well. Jalen Phillips, because of the impact he can make as an edge rusher. I get it. He's going to cost a lot. Make a swing for him. And then I don't think this is going to happen. Kenneth Walker III.
Interesting.
I'd be very interested to see them bring in a running back that can be a bell cow and that can complement Chase Brown in a way that if the Bengals get him, could be a very, very advantageous move for their entire offense. I'm telling you, Mike, I think there's a big move coming. I think there is a big move coming next week. And when we talk next week, there better be. Because these next 2 weeks are as crucial to the Joe Burrow era and to the entire future of the Bengals organization. James has talked about this. Joe himself has talked about this. We have talked about it. You have to get this right. Can you miss? Sure. But you can't. But you have to hit on 4 or 5 players like you did in 21. They say they've done it before. Now's the time to show it.
Yep. I think you're exactly right. Kenneth Walker, very interesting. I think I don't know if I expect that one though. Just I think they are going to pay. I think they're going to pay their defense more. I think they're probably cooling on offense a little bit. I wonder if they go wide receiver at all. If they're interested at all in signing any of these wide receivers, just like a Keenan Allen slot guy, because it does feel like it's nice to get Chase in the slot. It doesn't feel like Yosevas is really at his best in the slot, even though he is their third wide receiver and the guy that's trusted the most.
I'll give you another name too. Speaking of receiver, could Rashid Shaheed help them on special teams?
I think you can help them. Yeah. Anytime you get speed like that, I think that's always
Wow.
helpful.
We'll see what happens. Legal tampering period starts Monday at noon Eastern. The new league year starts Wednesday at 4 Eastern. We are back with the Bengals Squad show Tuesday afternoon. Mike, we appreciate you coming on. As always, Bengals Squad is the twice-a-week long-form conversational supplement to the Daily Lockdown Bengals podcast hosted by James Rapine and Jake Lisco. For more on how to become a member of the Everydayer Club, visit LockedOnPodcast.com/Everydayer. A newly established element to the #1 sports podcast network in America and the world, your team every day. For Mike Santagana at Bengals_Sands, I'm Alex Frank at Frankie_Natty. Have a great weekend. Enjoy all the college basketball this weekend. We'll talk to you next week in the height of free agency period right here on the Bengals Squad Show.